and welcome everybody. Can you all hear me? And can the dear folks on Zoom hear me? And a warm welcome to you all, especially if you're here for the first time. It's lovely to welcome you. Today's service is written by Steve, who's looking after the tech for us. It explores the theme of Christian pilgrimage to Jerusalem and the Holy Land. And as many of you know, Steve prefers writing the services rather than leading them. So us members of the congregation will be delivering today's reflections. Our service is in 3 parts and will include readings, hymns, and several short video clips, all chosen by Steve. A pilgrimage is a journey undertaken for a sacred or spiritual purpose, usually to a place considered holy, meaningful, or significant to a pilgrim's faith. It is often motivated by a desire for spiritual growth or renewal, as an act of penance, a search for God's guidance, or by a longing to connect with sacred history, tradition, or the divine. In the Christian tradition, pilgrimage includes travel to the Holy Land, Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Nazareth, and the Sea of Galilee. Other sites associated with Christian denominations. For Catholics, these include the Vatican, Santiago de Compostela, Lourdes, and Fatima. For Orthodox Christians, Mount Athos is a major centre of pilgrimage, while for Anglicans, Canterbury Cathedral holds special significance. For example, think of the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer, 24 short stories detailing a pilgrimage to Canterbury to visit the shrine of St. Thomas Becket. There are, of course, many more pilgrimage destinations, both within Britain and throughout the world, and I'm sure you can think of others that have personal meaning for you. What inspired today's service was Steve's childhood memories of Jerusalem. He spent part of his childhood and teenage years there in the 1970s and the 1980s, due to his parents' work. He has warm memories of living in both Palestinian and Israeli areas of the city, and his experiences in Jerusalem have given him a lifelong interest in religion and in the region's complex geopolitics. One distinct memory of Jerusalem that Steve has is that he could spot any British tourist a mile off, as the men always wore the fashion faux pas of socks and sandals, and the women were either lily white or bright red due to sunburn. Jerusalem is the holiest city for both Jews and Christians, and the third holiest for Muslims after Mecca and Medina. No other city on earth can claim such a profound sacred heritage, and it remains an endlessly fascinating place to visit. In Judaism, Jerusalem is called Yerushalayim, meaning the Lord will provide peace, and in Islam it is known as Al-Quds, meaning the holy. For today's service, we will refer to Israel-Palestine simply as the Holy Land. The ongoing conflict in the region, and particularly the events of recent years, continues to polarize opinion. But let us set politics aside this morning and hold this sacred space as a place of neutrality, reflection, and peace, at least for the next hour. So we start, as always, with the lighting of our chalice, a symbol of our free religious faith. I invite you to join in singing our first hymn, which is the hymn number 186 in the Purple Book, We Are Travellers on a Journey, and the words will appear on the screen as well. And if you like to stand, if you're able to sing. A few opening words from the book of Psalms in the Hebrew Bible, which we commonly refer to as the Old Testament. And this is Psalm 84, verse 5 from the New International Version. Blessed are those whose strength is in you, whose hearts are set on pilgrimage. I mentioned at the start that this service has been written in 3 parts, and this is the first of the 3. Steve writes, since the earliest days of the faith, Jerusalem has held profound significance for Christianity. It is the spiritual heart of the tradition, the place where Jesus preached, was crucified, and most importantly, where Christians believe he was resurrected. In the centuries before Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire, pilgrimage to Jerusalem was nearly impossible. This changed around about 313 Common Era, when the Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity and issued the Edict of Milan, legalizing the faith and allowing open worship. Both Constantine and his mother, St. Helena, played pivotal roles in establishing Christian pilgrimage to the Holy Land. St. Helena travelled there between 326 and 328, and is credited with identifying several key biblical locations. These include the site of the crucifixion and the tomb of Jesus, which later became the location of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. She is also believed to have discovered the cross on which Jesus was crucified, along with the crosses of the 2 thieves who died alongside with him. According to tradition, a miracle revealed which cross was the true one, an event which may have given rise to the lucrative trade in religious relics, which continues to this day. She also identified significant Christian sites on the Mount of Olives and in Bethlehem, and her pilgrimage remains one of the most influential in Christian history. Thanks to Constantine and his mother, Jerusalem became a mega pilgrimage destination for the Christian travellers, motivated by faith, penance, and a desire to experience the physical geography of their religion. To this day, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre remains the most important church in the Holy Land and arguably in all of Christendom. It marks both the site of Jesus' crucifixion at Calvary and the location of the empty tomb associated with his resurrection. Within the church are also the final 4 stations of the cross, making it an essential destination for pilgrims since the 4th century. Construction began in 326, and the church was dedicated in 335. It serves simultaneously as the seat of the Armenian, Greek Orthodox, and Latin Catholic Patriarchates of Jerusalem, while also sharing the sacred space with the Coptic, Syriac, and Ethiopian Orthodox churches. Relations between these denominations have not always been harmonious, and disputes have at times escalated into physical confrontations between rival priests and monks within the church. By the 4th and 5th centuries, pilgrimage had become an established element of Christian religious life. The Byzantine Empire actively supported this movement by maintaining roads, inns, and churches to accommodate the growing number of pilgrims. As a result, Jerusalem and other holy cities, such as Bethlehem, flourished not only as centres of devotion, but also hubs of commercial activity. In its early years, Christian pilgrimage was regarded as a form of penance or spiritual purification, with travellers willingly enduring hardship to deepen their faith. Death during a pilgrimage was not feared. It was sometimes even welcomed as a new form of martyrdom. One pilgrim who left behind a valuable written account was Egeria, a Spanish nun who travelled to the Holy Land in the 4th century. She authored the Travels of Egeria, which details a pilgrimage lasting several years, including 3 spent in Jerusalem. Unlike the modern era, in which a journey abroad lasts a few weeks, pilgrimages in late antiquity often took years, for reaching the destination alone would require weeks or even months of travel. The situation for Christian pilgrims changed in the 7th century with the rise of Islam and the Muslim conquest of Jerusalem in 638. Contrary to popular belief, Islamic rule was generally tolerant of both Christians and Jews, and Christian pilgrims continued to visit Jerusalem with relative freedom. The ruling caliphs recognized economic benefits of pilgrimage, and under the Umayyads and later the Abbasid caliphates, Christians retained access to their holy sites, often paying a tax in exchange for protection and safe passage. Travel, however, remained extremely difficult, and pilgrims were often victims of banditry. Political instability and warfare also disrupted their journeys, much as they continue to do so today. By the 11th century, stories, often embellished or exaggerated, of suffering and the desecration of Christian sacred sites gradually shaped European attitudes to Muslim rule of the Holy Land, ultimately leading to the outbreak of the Crusades. Pope Urban II launched the First Crusade in 1095, and one of his primary objectives was to reopen safe access for Christian pilgrims to the Holy Land. The Crusader period lasted from 1095 to 1291, so just under 2 centuries. Jerusalem was captured in 1099, and the Kingdom of Jerusalem was established alongside other Crusader states: the County of Edessa, the Principality of Antioch, and the county of Tripoli. Collectively, these territories were known as Outre-mer, a French term meaning overseas. The European settlers who arrived in these lands became known as Franks. Christian pilgrims weren't limited to knights or soldiers. Many were ordinary lay people seeking salvation, penance, adventure perhaps, or healing at sacred places. The principal pilgrimage destinations during the Crusades included the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, Bethlehem, the Mount of Olives, Nazareth, and the region of Galilee. Travel was dangerous and costly, but pilgrimage brought a steady flow of visitors who spent money on lodging, food, and souvenirs. A comprehensive pilgrimage infrastructure developed within the Crusader kingdoms, including hospitals and hostels, and organised routes to major holy sites. Military religious orders, such as the Order of St. John, known as the Hospitallers, and the Templars, established networks of way stations for pilgrims across the Holy Land. These orders also provided protection, including armed escorts for pilgrims travelling through particularly dangerous regions. Local populations, including Muslims, earned a living providing food, guides, interpreters, and as merchants, and they still do so to this day. Pilgrimage proved to be a vital source of revenue for the Crusader states, which taxed both pilgrims and merchants. Port cities such as Akko or Acre in the north and Jaffa near modern-day Tel Aviv became major hubs for ships arriving from Europe. Additional income was also generated through taxes on imported goods and port fees paid by European visitors. European maritime republics such as Venice, Pisa, and Genoa also profited by transporting pilgrims and crusaders to and from the Holy Land, an early equivalent of budget airlines, not easy jets, but perhaps easy pilgrim. How little the world changes, as religion has long been closely intertwined with commerce. It was the Knights Templar who developed an early check-based system, often compared to a medieval version of American Express. Pilgrimage was dangerous, and seasoned travellers understood the risk of carrying large amounts of cash. To avoid robbery and financial ruin en route, pilgrims or crusaders could deposit their money at a Templar house before departure. In return, they received a written note or coded receipt, effectively a medieval check. Upon reaching the Holy Land, this document could be presented at another Templar house, where the funds could be withdrawn, minus a small commission. This system allowed pilgrims to travel without carrying cash, safeguarded their wealth, and provided a standardized financial network across the region. In this way, the Templars became pioneers of international finance, a development that ultimately contributed to their downfall. The Crusades also laid the foundations for organized travel, including safer routes, structured accommodation, and religious sponsorship. Jerusalem fell to Saladin in 1187, and although Christian pilgrimage continued afterwards, it was placed under stricter regulation and required special permits. In 1291, the last Crusader stronghold at Acre fell, bringing direct European control in the Holy Land to an end. Pilgrimage continued under Muslim rule, but the golden age of Crusader-sponsored pilgrimage was over. For a cinematic portrayal of the Crusades in the Holy Land, Ridley Scott's 2005 movie, Kingdom of Heaven, offers a depiction of the events leading up to the Third Crusade. Our second hymn is To Be a Pilgrim, also known as He Who Would Valiant Be. It's an English Christian hymn using the words of John Bunyan from The Pilgrim's Progress, written in 1684. The hymn treats life as a pilgrimage in which the individual should try to keep their faith and patently endure life's setbacks and challenges. This is something much easier said than done. The version we're going to hear is from YouTube. The words are in the Green Book, number 150, as we don't have a recording of this ourselves. The words will appear on the screen, and Steve says perhaps you might wish to stay seated for this one. Sing along if you know the words, or just listen. The choice is yours. So let's have our second hymn, To Be a Pilgrim.
Constant be
Well, that was a very upbeat version. Oh, I quite like that. We now come to a short prayer written for a safe journey before we move into the second part of our service, and Anne is going to read this prayer for us.
Spirit of life and love, source of wisdom within and among us, as we set out on this journey, we pause to breathe, to centre and to give thanks. May we travel with care and attentiveness, aware of the world around us and our place within it. Grant us patience in moments of delay, calm in moments of uncertainty, and clarity in the choices we make along the way. May our paths be guided by compassion and respect for one another, for strangers we may meet, and for the earth that carries us forward. If challenges arise, may we meet them with steady hearts and thoughtful minds. If beauty appears, may we notice it and be renewed by it. Carry us safely to our destination and return us home with deeper gratitude, wiser spirits, and a renewed commitment to care for one another. So may it be. Amen.
Thank you, Anne, for reading that. We come to the second part of our service, in which we examine pilgrimage to the Holy Land from around 1860 to 1948. And this spans the Ottoman rule, the British Mandate, and culminates in the creation of the modern State of Israel in 1948, an event known to the Palestinians as Al-Nakba, or the catastrophe. It was an era in which international travel was largely the preserve of the wealthy. From the late 19th century onwards, the Holy Land underwent profound social, political, and cultural transformation. It evolved from a neglected provincial backwater into a major destination for international travellers, with growing numbers of European and American visitors journeying not only to the Holy Land, but also to Egypt. Three key factors combined in this period to generate a boom in pilgrimage tourism. The first was an artistic movement known as Orientalism. The second was the emergence of a clientele with the financial means to travel, and the third was the development of faster and more reliable forms of transport. Orientalism was a 19th century artistic and cultural movement that portrayed Eastern societies as mysterious and exotic. Seen largely through a European lens, it often presented a highly romanticized version of the Orient, featuring glamorous depictions of harems, Bedouins, souks, and forbidden wonders. In later years, the movement fell out of favour due to its reliance on stereotypes rather than authentic cultural representation and its close association with colonial attitudes. Like most artistic movements, it was, ultimately, a product of its time. One prominent Orientalist painter was David Roberts, originally from Edinburgh, who travelled extensively throughout the region between 1838 to 1840. During this time, he produced more than 200 lithographs, many of which depict scenes from the Holy Land. Steve recalls that his parents owned several prints of David Roberts' work in their home, copies of course, and he was particularly captivated by them. And we're going to have a short video clip, about a minute and a half, to show you some of these paintings. Wow, what some amazing paintings to say were there, isn't it? So we're looking at the journeys. The rise of the luxury steamships and railway travel made pilgrimages increasingly accessible to a growing middle class, eager to visit biblical sites firsthand. So the journeys became faster and, more importantly, safer. Luxury trains and floating hotels were created for the wealthy tourists willing to spend generously on exotic adventures. Think, for example, of the steamship in Agatha Christie's Death on the Nile, or the Orient Express, which started journeys from Paris to Istanbul in 1883. Pilgrims of this era included the nouveau riche of Victorian Britain and America's Gilded Age, industrialists, entrepreneurs, railway millionaires, merchants, financiers, and colonial profiteers. One landmark journey was led by Thomas Cook, yes, the Thomas Cook, in 1869. This was one of the earliest recorded escorted tours to the region, travelling throughout Egypt and the Holy Land, including Jerusalem. The trip is widely regarded as a milestone in the development of modern international tourism. Another notable pilgrim to the Holy Land at this time was the author Mark Twain, who visited Jerusalem in 1867 as part of a tour. His experiences were later published in The Innocents Abroad, which became a major success. Twain, however, was far from impressed with Jerusalem. In his book, he described the city in terms of rags, wretchedness, poverty, and dirt, noting that lepers, cripples, the blind, and disabled accosted visitors constantly. He observed they seemed to know only one word in one language, the eternal bakshish. This term derives from the Persian word bakshish, meaning a tip or gratuity given freely. It remains in use across much of the Arab world today. Interest in the Holy Land during this time was also stimulated by formal scholarly initiatives like the Palestinian Exploration Fund, established under the patronage of Queen Victoria in 1865. Their original mission statement aimed to research biblical Palestine and the Levant, including its archaeology and history. Its mission included mapping the Holy Land and documenting its cultural heritage, and was one of several religious and cultural societies founded in the 19th century with similar interests. All these developments, travel, literature, scholarly research, and organised tours, served to increase the allure of the Holy Land for potential pilgrims. So, where did these wealthy pilgrims stay? Several luxurious hotels and guest houses were built, including one constructed in 1884 for Catholic pilgrims. Today it is known as the Notre Dame of Jerusalem Centre, a beautiful hotel just outside the Christian Quarter. And we have a short video clip about this hotel.
Today I'm visiting a nice place called Hotel Notre Dame here in Jerusalem. It's next to the old city, Damascus Gate, New Gate. And let's go together up and discover it a bit. Look at the beauty of the architecture. It's very nice, no? There's a beautiful restaurant up there. I hope that I have the chance one time to go there and film for you, because you have a spectacular view on the old city and you see the garden. Isn't that nice? The driveway and the architecture. It's just beautiful here. And this is the entrance to the hotel. And we go back, some step back to see Notre Dame, Our Lady, who is up there with Jesus. And this is the entrance to the hotel. And you have some archaeological stuff as well. And look at that, isn't that beautiful? The walls of the old city over there. Also the view here. Just a very nice hotel. And there we go into the hotel. Isn't that beautiful? That's the entrance of the Hotel Notre Dame here in Jerusalem.
Amazing. So that was the Notre Dame. Another guest house, church and hospital was the Russian compound, built under Imperial Russian patronage by the Russian Palestinian Society. Several neighbourhoods in Jerusalem were named after this period of colonial European influence, including one called French Hill and another called the German Colony, built by a German Christian sect in the 1870s, who arrived in Jerusalem to prepare for messianic salvation. The American Colony Hotel, founded in 1902 by Sir Peter Ustinov's grandfather, who was called Plato von Ustinov, that's quite a name, is situated in a Palestinian neighbourhood of Jerusalem and remains popular with international journalists, and it's long been regarded as neutral ground. The most famous hotel in the Holy Land, however, is the 5-star King David Hotel in Jerusalem, which opened in 1931. It was founded by the wealthy Egyptian Jewish banker Ezra Mozari, and it quickly became one of the leading hotels in the world, hosting royalty from Persia, Europe and Jordan, as well as other high-profile guests. During the British Mandate, the southern wing served as an administrative and military offices, and it was infamously bombed in 1946 by the Zionist parliamentary group, the Irgun. Even Hercule Poirot visited Jerusalem in Agatha Christie's novel Appointment with Death. The book was inspired by Christie's travel in the Middle East and is set in Jerusalem and Petra in modern-day Jordan. Whilst on holiday in Jerusalem, Poirot overhears a character, as he so often does, tell his sister, "You do see, don't you, that she's got to be killed." The she in question is later found dead during a trip to Petra. A film version, starring Peter Ustinov as Poirot, was shot on location in the American Colony Hotel and at Government House in Jerusalem, which served as the British Mandate Administrative Centre. Poirot also makes an appearance in Jerusalem in the 2017 version of Murder on the Orient Express, starring Sir Kenneth Branagh, where he solves a theft at the Holy Sepulchre Church before travelling on to Istanbul. Pilgrim tourism during the British Mandate was increasingly affected by political unrest. In the 1930s, tensions rose in response to increased Jewish immigration, leading to unrest and uprisings, events depicted in the recent film Palestine 36, which explores Arab opposition to both Jewish immigration and British rule. The outbreak of World War II, the Holocaust, and the 1948 partition of the Holy Land severely disrupted Christian pilgrimage, likely reducing it to minimal levels until the early 1950s. Before we move to the final part of our service, we have a short video clip about the Church of Scotland in Jerusalem. St Andrew's Church, sometimes called the Scots Memorial Church, was built as a memorial to Scottish soldiers who were killed during the Sinai and Palestine campaign of the First World War. Built between 1927 and opened in 1930, It was popular with Scots during the British Mandate. There are many churches in Jerusalem from all denominations, but this is one that Steve himself has visited, attended a few times, and likes the most, mainly due to his Scottish heritage. And we're going to see now the Feast of St Andrew, the Scottish Church in Jerusalem.
You can find a touch of Scottish atmosphere in the Holy City. The Scottish Church of St Andrews opened its doors on the occasion of the feast of the patron saint of Scotland.
There are not many references to St Andrews in the New Testament. He was a humble fisherman, the brother of Simon Peter, who grew up in the Galilee. And he was later a missionary throughout Greece, and some people say into what is now Ukraine.
This is a Presbyterian church, born from the reform of 1560 by John Knox. The Scottish Church has been present in the Holy Land since the early 1900s, when the Scottish population increased significantly during the British Mandate.
This church was built in 1929 at a very different time to where we are today. And in 1917, General Allenby enters Jerusalem, and General Allenby laid the first stone here at this church. And so the church was built to commemorate the soldiers who had fallen in the First World War Palestinian campaigns across Palestine.
In the small church under the burning bush in the shape of a cross in memory of Pentecost, there were songs and prayers in different languages during the liturgical service.
Trying to use our presence here really as a bridge into different communities. What we do feels like a very small drop in a very big ocean. We hope that in some small way it is contributing towards a just peace and a future where all of those who are living here are treated with the same dignity, respect, and human rights, as we're all made in the image of God.
Today, the small congregation of St Andrews offers hospitality to pilgrims in Jerusalem, as well as in Galilee on Lake Tiberias. They also provide education in their own school in Jaffa, in Tel Aviv.
Oh, that's interesting. Thank you, Steve. So we come to the final part of our service. This focuses on Christian pilgrimage to the Holy Land since 1948. Support for Israel among Christians, particularly in America, is a significant and well-documented reality. The alliance has become one of the most influential partnerships in modern American political and religious life. Many Christians view the creation of the State of Israel in 1948 as linked to end times, the fulfillment of biblical prophecy, and the anticipated second coming of Jesus, sometimes termed the rapture. This close relationship has significantly shaped United States foreign policy, generating both cooperation and controversy. The United States provides Israel with strong diplomatic support, particularly in the United Nations, as well as billions in economic and military aid. A central reason for Christian support of Israel is religious conviction, rooted in the belief of a covenant between God and the Jewish people. Many Christians see Israel as having a divinely ordained role in human history. This theological perspective has emerged into what is known as Christian Zionism, support for Israel as an expression of obedience to Scripture. For example, the Abrahamic covenant in Genesis 12, verse 3 states, "I will bless those that bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse." The influence of the American Christian right is evident in the form of advocacy organizations, lobbying networks, and coordinated political action in Washington. Modern Christian pilgrimage to the Holy Land is strongly influenced by pro-Israel evangelical movements. One prominent example is Christians United for Israel, or CUFI, which has the support of millions of American Christian evangelicals. Another is Christian Friends of Israel, with branches in both the United States and Britain. There has even been an international Christian embassy in Jerusalem for over 40 years. These organizations advocate for continued military and economic support to Israel. Many visit Israeli settlements in the West Bank, referred to by Israel as Judea and Samaria, providing both political and financial support. A strong Israel is seen as significant for end times theology in mainly evangelical denominations, and many travel in times of unrest or conflict as an expression of support and solidarity. South Korea also represents a significant source of modern pilgrimage, with 20 to 25% of South Koreans identifying as Protestant. Many are Israeli evangelicals. South Korean churches frequently pray for Israel and host events in its support. Pilgrims also come from sub-Saharan Africa and Latin America, regions where evangelicalism is growing rapidly, further contributing to the global flow of modern Christian pilgrims to the Holy Land. And of course, Catholic pilgrims from Spain, Portugal, France and Italy, as well as Latin America, which is still predominantly Catholic. The current American ambassador to Israel is Mike Huckabee, who is known for his pro-Israel stance, rooted in his evangelical Christian faith. He describes himself as an unapologetic, unreformed Zionist, rejects the idea of a two-state solution, refers to the West Bank as Judea and Samaria, and openly supports Israeli settlements. Ironically, life for Christians in the Holy Land is increasingly affected by the far-right government of Benjamin Netanyahu, considered the most extreme right-wing government in Israel's history. Jewish extremists have harassed and assaulted Christian clergy and damaged property in the Christian quarter of the Old City, as this extremist element seeks to transform Jerusalem into an exclusively Jewish capital. The Palestinian and Israeli Arab Christian communities continue to shrink each year, particularly in Gaza. This exodus is driven by violence, harassment, vandalism, and persistent socio-political instability. Pilgrimage to the Holy Land is no longer reserved for the wealthy. Until the 1970s, flying was expensive, but larger aircraft, capable of holding hundreds of passengers, now mean cheaper flights for the estimated 500,000 to 700,000 Christian pilgrims travelling to the Holy Land every year. A pilgrimage can be spiritually uplifting, overwhelming sometimes, and sometimes triggers a phenomenon called Jerusalem syndrome. This is a diagnosed psychological phenomenon in which mainly Christian visitors experience intense religious-themed thoughts, beliefs, or behaviours. In 1969, an Australian tourist tried to set fire to the Muslim holy shrine of Al-Aqsa Mosque, believing he was on a divine mission. Others feel compelled to preach publicly, wear biblical clothing, or even identify as figures such as Jesus or John the Baptist. Many visitors to Jerusalem report an almost palpable spiritual energy, a vibration. And across the centuries, countless pilgrims have reported similar experiences, encountering a spiritual presence that continues to resonate to today. And Steve says, thank you for listening. And invite you to join in singing our third hymn, which is number 30 in the Purple Book. Each seeking faith is seeking light. And again, the words will appear on the screen. We come to our closing words, and they're also from the book of Psalms, Psalm 122, verse 6 from the King James Bible. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. They shall prosper that love thee, and that peace and love should be for all inhabitants of Jerusalem, regardless of their faith.